Here we go. And here we are, everybody. Scott Stevens here with a look at Scott's weather on the Metadime channel. And we are really kind of in a situation, aren't we? As a country, as a world, and the weather is kind of like the little escape in the news upon which you can just kind of set all that business aside and just kind of just let it go. And that's kind of the beautiful thing about it, because even sports, they have to get involved or did get involved. The NBA and the China thing, or kneeling or not standing at the national anthem, the professional sports games that have gone on for a couple of seasons now. And kind of the weather is the reprieve. And I always appreciated that, even though at times I can hold some strongly held opinions or ideas about how things are going on out there. It really comes down to our concepts. What do we think of ourselves as a people, and how we think of ourselves will determine some of the choices we're going to make. And we're going to hit that. I'm going to hit that, and hopefully you'll join me tomorrow as we get into or have a look at my other show, another perspective on this channel, on these two channels. For the time being, I'll get it spread out there a little bit farther, but that is not in the immediate future. But really, how do we make our choices? And we make those choices from what we believe ourselves to be, or what we believe others to be. And it really is, it's kind of a slippery slope, or it's a great ladder out of problems and messes we find ourselves in. So it's kind of cool. Good to see everybody popping on in there. And just welcome to a Tuesday. Again, as I mentioned, the weather is always a bit of a break from the BS that's going on in the world. And if you look on up, which is a good place to always be looking, we had some kind of cool iridescent clouds. Those were out over Southwest Florida yesterday. This was a tweet from Jim Cantori. He retweeted it from Matt Devitt. And iridescent clouds have always been something that I've taken. I probably have several hundred pictures of these things, because they're kind of common but unique. And if you're not looking up, then you'll never see them. You'll never see them. So my habit is I go outside, I look up, and maybe that's just from lives past where something's coming at you. But these are kind of beautiful down in Southwest Florida. I tell you, as I was looking through Twitter today for weather stories and the like, everything, well, not everything, but the vast majority of stories are centered on the Gulf of Mexico and this coming tropical storm Cristal. I don't know if it's going to be a big thing. It's going to be a wet event regardless, because there's a lot of water with it. There was a lot of water with it as it transitioned across the Gulf, from Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and then up through the Yucatan. They dealt with some flooding. Some of the models here, and again, we have many models, many solutions, but this is where it is now in the Bay of Campeche. But nearly all of them bring it slowly off to the north. The number, this is like, say, 96 hours in the future, 120 hours in the future, 96, and so forth. So you can see over the next 2 days, it really does not move much at all. There really aren't a lot of steering currents down there to direct it in any one gradual direction, but then off to the north. So if we look at the national, this was not the one that we just talked about. Hurricane forecast models got an upgrade this year. That's why this is relevant. Thanks to new satellite data from Goes East and Goes West. Now, over the last 18 months or so, we've had to very, very nice satellites end up in space. And with that, a lot more data gathering abilities, a lot more remote sensing, a lot more data going into the model, so we can, in theory, produce better forecasts. Now, still the Weather Service and then, then a Weather Channel, their forecast for Cristobal is continuing to work off of the north. So we're probably looking the latter part of this coming weekend before it really shows an event. And then the Hurricane Hunter aircraft did a couple of slices through it just to get a little sampling to make sure it is what it is. But winds at 1 o'clock this afternoon, noon Mountain and 2 Eastern, right about 40 miles an hour. So that's just enough to qualify it and christen it and give it a name. And what is really kind of cool is that this storm is the third earliest. Excuse me, where was that? Where was that record? There we are, breaking. Cristobal has formed in the southwest Gulf of Mexico, setting a record for the earliest third named Atlantic storm. And last year, when we got to the third named storm, we were already to the 20th of August. So we're really early and hard out of the gate. All right, Severe Weather Europe, severe-weather.eu. They're kind of a little clearinghouse for stories out of Europe. So the summer 2020 forecast, I'd go into it, but honestly, there's a lot of charts, a lot of graphs, and as I looked through it, what I saw was noise. There's a lot of the different models, and even when you blend them all together, it comes out noise because they have so many different conclusions. And this graphic itself is kind of be a prelude to the last one we're going to look at today in a few minutes, is that northern Canada is going to be dealing with some warmth. And then as we transition south into the middle part of the United States, and then the growing areas of Europe, they're rather cool. And it's kind of backwards from the situation. You'd expect to see that cool weather farther north and then the warmth farther south. But the jet stream is doing unusual things, and we will see those unusual things all the way through the summertime season, because once they begin, then it's hard to have them end. Hey, Risa, Robin, Vicky, and of course our Facebook user over there, the one who we shall not mention. Again, if you want me to see your name, you've got to give StreamYard permission so that I can see it, because I'm in 2 pages, one a group and one a page. And I can only see one group, so I can't see those comments necessarily always going on my page. So if you want to do that, give it permission. Last night, New England, rather chilly again with lows in the 30s. This, I believe, was midnight when I reset this last night, just to show you that the 80s, the 70s and 80s, all the way up to into Minnesota, very, very warm last night. And we'll refresh this to bring it into current temperatures. And still some heat. Chicago at 92, but Milwaukee at 92, Omaha or Lincoln, one or the other. Sometimes they kind of cheat these temperatures off in one direction, so they're not necessarily on city center, but still a lot of heat. And this heat in the middle part of the nation is going to be with us for a little while, not forever, but it's going to stay with us for a bit. I'm going to come over here and we'll animate these 96 frames, and we'll see the thunderstorms renew once again across Texas, and then it is farther south into the Gulf of deep into the Gulf of Mexico where the storm activity is. But the severe weather today, not in Colorado, not in Kansas, not in Texas or the Northwest, but in the upper Mississippi Valley, up in that direction. Well, here's the Colorado storms, but I really wanted to look at this right in through here. So we had some big rains roll through Minneapolis, through Rochester, Minnesota, and then over and working it south through mid Wisconsin, and then pushing south, and then shortly across across Lake Michigan. But that'll probably happen after we get to dark. And then flood watch in western Kansas. These are places that have been very, very dry, and the rain, pretty much all of it, is welcome at this particular point in the game. More scattered thunderstorms throughout the Southwest. A few light showers in the Northeast, and then some rains into South Florida, and a few very cool showers up into New England. And what we're looking at, let's pop over the overview. In fact, better yet, let's just do a straight up refresh just to make sure they haven't updated these things. But the hashtags are the hashes where we would see some severe weather storms all the way from, say, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, on to, say, Rochester, New York. It's just kind of a narrow band. The humidity is surging south. The energy to support that is racing out to the east. So it's really not that big of an event with a widespread severity, but we still have that conflict where the heat and humidity rolling up. I see that TV back there. I bought that TV so I could stand in front of it. I put these little maps on there and do like a little weather dance, like you do with the green screen. So I'm kind of like partway there. I've got to work out some of the other thingies because I would much rather be standing up and talking about these things rather than pointing on the screen over here and then looking at you here and then talking about this over here. So I'll get that worked out. But over to day 3, and then a lot of precip. Look at that. Really from the Northern Rockies all the way and off the coast. So as far as record temperatures, this is where they're going to be. They have been today, kind of scattered in the D.C. area, say Lexington, Kentucky, into southern Kansas. That's Dodge City at 96 degrees, forecast to be within a degree of the record high, which was set back in 1874. So that is an old record. And we roll out through tomorrow. The heat begins to build. Alamosa at 86 down here. We've got Pueblo at 97. Pueblo or Colorado Springs, one or the other. Let's just click on it, and it should bring us up the data. Yeah, Pueblo. So 103 as you get into the panhandle of Texas. So that's about where Risa is down in that area. Good to see over there. A friend, and then still some heat over at Fresno, FAT at 104 degrees. So that heat's going to go on even as we get to Sunday. The northern locations cool off a little bit, but then the heat retreats off to the south. So some of the other weather stories going on. June starting with the heat. It's kind of widespread, but it's still punctuated by rain and showers. So you may hit that record high by 3 in the afternoon, but then the storm comes in, or at least the cool outflow boundary comes from that. Yeah, raw sewage. Yeah, you never want to hear your neighbor say raw sewage, because if there's a 500 million gallons, likely you're going to see some of that. Some of that flooding reported in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula before Cristobal became a tropical storm. There's the forecast for it. And just this is kind of cool as you get into one last Michigan ski hill dealing with a little bit of snow. Let's see if we can't make that picture just a touch bit larger. See, look at that. Still one drift. I remember when I was living in upstate New York working in the Albany area, it was always at least the first week of May before on the north side of the house, that drift with all the snow that slid off the roof, that snow was then finally gone. All right. What is unusual as we get into June and into summer are these cutoff lows. See this one off of California? We've got another deep trough off the northeastern states. That is cool weather. And we have still a fairly strong jet stream rolling along to the north, but these little lows have been cut off. They've been separated from the main flow of the jet stream. They wander around there for a little while, then eventually something else comes on in and then picks them up. This is typically something that we would be dealing with in the spring and fall. But now we're like pushing into the middle of June, at least this forecast, and we're still seeing these cutoff lows. So as we kind of circle back to the global warming debate, they're saying that this is a function of global warming. But really, how I see this is that we've got cooler weather, at least in the atmosphere up here, and it's trying to come south. We've got hot pockets, 576 over the Hudson Bay area. Let's come right over here. Well, let's just pop over here real quick, and we'll surface products, 2-meter temperatures. Let's come out here and then just look at how warm some of these places here in Northern Ontario are going to be. These are mid-70s. You can kind of see them. I really want to stand in front of the screen and point them out. 77, 76, 73, 79, 78. And this goes on for a couple of days. But the inverse of that is the cool has then just been displaced down into Minnesota, into Wisconsin, into the Great Lakes states. And even if we run this a little farther out, we can see it's hot in the middle where, well, fortunately or unfortunately, in the Northwest Territories, there's not a lot of farming happening. It just isn't happening there. And so this heat has been drawn to the north where it's unproductive for humanity. And then the cool has come down where we've got temperatures in the 40s, 50s, and even the 30s in parts of say the Ohio River Valley in the middle of June. So it's kind of like everything is just out of place. We're not growing the crops where the heat is. The heat is where the ice is. And so everything's just kind of backwards. And then we're still dealing with the tropical storms, Cristobal, probably this weekend, and then another one shortly on its heels. So that's kind of a look at what's going on. I'm going to kind of bring in another little segment to this here probably before the end of the week. I'll call it the cloud tour. I want to look at some of the freaky clouds that are out there because in the 15 years I've been doing this outside of the mainstream, my focus and my interest has been on oddly shaped clouds. And I'll start showing you some of those tomorrow. And I want you to either Twitter them and tag me or even on Facebook. I don't mind a tag so much because then I could just go through that news feed and share them with everybody. But yeah, we'll call it Cloud Tour and kind of look at some of the crazy things that are happening in the skies that, in my opinion, need an explanation. All right, everybody. Thanks for spending a couple of minutes with me, and Rob and Risa and the gang, and Jody over there too. I'm in Lafayette, Louisiana. Last year, the forecasts have been way off. Is it old equipment or a script they have to follow? No, trust me, the guys want to do their best. It's their reputation. Nobody wants to get up in front of the camera and give a bad forecast. So what they're looking at is information that is fed into the models, which to the best of their knowledge is accurate. But when there's another agenda, and this was my big thing with forecasting, when there's an aspect of geoengineering happening, is that there's another agenda at play. And how could I forecast that? And it was only by understanding the different aspects of it that I could even begin to anticipate what was happening. And the one thing I learned is that the trend is your friend. If you're in a drought or if you're in a wet pattern and the models are like saying it's going to rain, and you're in a drought, you go dry. You undercut the forecast. You go scatter showers, maybe a scattered thunderstorm, which will likely be true because then there'll be some technology deployed against what the forecast is. So you can deal with that. So where is that comment, Joe? Just throw that up. Yeah. No, it's not necessarily a script. The guys, trust me, they want to do the right thing. They want to look good in front of their peers. They want to look good in front of their friends. They want to do the best. And if you don't know what's happening, you can't make compensations for that other little delta, as I called them, that little variable that is unknown. And it is unknown to the vast majority. I mean, they've all these weather guys in all the newsrooms, they've all been hit with chemtrails. They've all been hit with geoengineering. And that's just where it was in the early 2000s. I'm like, don't talk to me about that. There's no way they can do it. But once you understand how it can be done and the different tools in the toolbox, there are people who believe it has to deal with the next rad radar systems. There are others that it's all the trails, chemtrails. Some believe it's heart-based. Others even believe it's steam towers dealing with power generation. Those are all too myopic. No carpenter builds a house with a hammer or a screwdriver or a nail gun. No. When you're going to play with an agenda this large, you maximize your available tool base. You use everything you can to get to that desired outcome. All right, let's start looking at some freaky clouds as we let's do that Thursday. Let's start looking at some freaky clouds. If you've got pictures of some crazy things, send them on in. Hit me up on Facebook or Twitter, and we'll go from there. I probably have an account on Instagram. I know I do, but I just honestly, I set it up and I truly never used it because there was enough social media in my life and I had other things to do. So I didn't get that one set up. I'll share that with you tomorrow. All right, guys, thanks for stopping by. Keep looking up.